Good morning, everyone, and let's fix this. Shabbat Shalom. We are thankful yet for another day. God has blessed us through another week. We are thankful for a day to just chill out, rest, compose ourselves in order to start the next busy week. So just very thankful for how God blesses us in our lives. We always recognize Him for the blessings in our lives, the things that go on, the teachings that He gives us. We're going to talk a little bit today about perspective and the way that we view things, and ultimately how that determines the way that we feel about them, but also a little bit deeper into that. So if you would, let us stand and turn to Proverbs 15. So stand and turn to Proverbs 15 for me. And we'll start in verse 13. A glad heart makes a good face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is stricken. The heart of the understanding one seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but gladness of heart is a continual feast. Let us lift up our eyes. God, Adonai, Elyon, Most High, thank you for this day that you have given us, how you've set this day apart. We thank you for this opportunity to just recharge and prepare for another week. We thank you for your love and mercy, how you show it to us continually. Be with us. We all have questions. We're looking for answers. That's where we're going to start this morning in Proverbs, that we would seek out knowledge, seek out understanding, that we would never give up, even though that times are challenging and times are rough, that we would continue to look to you for that collective consciousness, that you would give us that understanding. Bless us by your Ruach, that you would breathe upon us, and that we would have a greater knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in our lives, but that also we would be kind to ourselves. That we would have mercy upon ourselves, not to be so hard on ourselves and critical of ourselves, but to understand that life is a process. The things that we had difficulty with before, we have figured them out through your mercy, and that we will continue to look to you presently and also in the future. I believe all that I am, as you have written, that you would not leave us, even in our troubles, even in our hard times, our shortcomings and our failings. You have not left us alone. You understand us, you treat us as a kid, as a child. You are tender towards us. Your loving mercy is everlasting. We lift up our eyes to you. We pray at this time that you would give us a solid understanding of your word, that we would teach it in clarity, not only to understand, but to apply in our lives. Understand that there's a hope, that there also is instruction for the benefit of our lives and for the good of our lives. We pray over this people, that you would bless them. Anyone that might not know God, that they would have a continual search for who you are, to build a personal relationship with you. Lead, guide, and direct us. Have mercy, I pray. Baruch Hashem. So, Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15 and verse 13. A glad heart makes a good face. So a glad heart, that is sama'ah. It is a joyful heart, a merry heart, you who rejoice. Blithe, that is happy or joyous. We all know the definition for love. It is inner man, that is your heart, your mind, will, heart, knowledge, thinking, reflection, memory. So if we add both of those together, and we can, a merry mind, a happy heart, rejoicing memories. So, a glad heart makes a good face. When we look at face, and we think of face, it's not just here is my visage, here is my face. It is your expression. That's what that means. It's the expression on your face. So if your heart is happy, what does it do? It changes your outward appearance. So all of it starts where? Within. We did that message on the battle within. Who do we struggle with more than anyone? Ourselves. Who are we harder on than anyone? Ourselves. We set high expectations, we set high standards for ourselves, and therefore we are very critical, always continually under the microscope of us. We scrutinize ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. Then that can also mess up our relationships. Why? Because we have a high standard for self that we put onto others. And that also can be detrimental for a relationship. So, have some mercy. Have some grace. Be kind to yourself. You should be your biggest cheerleader. You should be the one who is encouraging you in hard times. It is good to have a partner. It is good because sometimes we spiral. Everybody does it. Have you ever been down the deep rabbit hole, the dark rabbit hole, and it's hard to get out? Your thoughts race, your mind is awry. And it's good to have someone to say, hey, here I am. I'm going to help you. I'm not leaving. I'm staying. I'm here for you. We're friends. I love you. Whatever it is, I'm your partner. It is good to have someone because sometimes it is too hard to pull yourself out of depression. So, you ultimately, and as we continue to get on through this message, what you feed grows. What you feed gets stronger. If you feed righteousness unto justification, you will get stronger in doing well. Okay? But if you feed evil into destruction, you will continue into misery. Okay? So what you feed gets stronger. How do we feed these needs? How do we feed these thoughts? It is through what you are bringing into your body. It is through your eyes. It is through your ears. It's through your senses, through your nose, smelling, taste, all of it. You can taste things that are destroying your body. You can hear things that destroy your self-sense or your sense of self. It all comes through your senses. So how you feed them, through what you watch, through what you listen to, is affecting you. Okay? So if you strive for the good and you seek the good, you will begin to become strong in the good. All things are a process. That is also a good area for you to be tender to yourself. You have to realize that the place that you want to be may not be the place that you currently are, and it's going to be a process to get there. Okay? Same thing with your children. Having children is a continual process. I don't know if it ever ends. It don't. With your children. You're never going to stop worrying about your kids. You're never going to stop caring for your kids. It's always going to be there even when they're grown and they have their own life. And it is a continual guidance. Life is a continual guidance for your children. Just like God with us. Think about how tender you are with your children. How you want the best for your children. How you want to guide and lead your children. And you want the best life for them. Same thing with God. He instructs us. He guides us. He leads us so that we can have life. So, a merry mind, a happy heart, rejoicing memory. We have two options in life. We can see things as good or we can see things as bad. And I love to go back to Joseph in his life at the very end. And he says, what you had intended for evil, God had used for good. So looking back on Joseph's life and every single struggle that he had, as we talked about earlier, we can mix these together. He has rejoicing memories. We watch that one show, what is it called? Married at First Sight. We watched that show. It's kind of funny. But at the very, yesterday we were watching, and a struggle that one of the couples had, they were reflecting on that struggle because she was cooking for him and the noodles were getting too soft. So he stepped in and said, these are too soft, and she walked out. And stayed in an apartment or stayed in a hotel. And then they didn't talk all that night. It was bad. But as they were reflecting back on it, and she asked him, what would you change about anything that we've had experienced so far? And he said, I would have eaten the noodles. And then they laughed. So, a lot of times when we look back on our lives and we reflect on our lives, we can laugh about the disagreements that we've had. Sometimes the disagreements that we have are just trivial. People break up over condiment choices, or you put pickles on my hamburger. People do that. You can let anything become an argument. And what that usually stems from, there is a root. Okay? And what happens is when you let that root grow and you let that thought fester, if it is not resolved early, many things pile on top of that. And before you know it, you're going to explode. And you cannot come back from that. Okay, it's tough. So it's best, if we had a title for this message this morning, it's called Communication. The title is called Communication. This is going to be about communication with your spouse. This is about communication with your friends and your relationships and your family, but this is also about communication with God and the type of communication and bond that you're trying to build. So, starting out here, we have two options in life. We can see things as bad or good. Maybe it's not failure. Too often we think about, I failed. I failed at this and I failed at that, and I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to disappoint anybody. And too often we do that in a sense of self-sacrifice. We do that. But sometimes that doesn't bother me. I try to be very even. I try to be very lenient in all things. So, you got to realize that maybe it's not a failure. Maybe it's an open door and an opportunity for growth. Because I tell you, 100% this morning, all the failures in your life, look at them in a respect to where they have challenged you and also given you an opportunity to become better. And if you look at successful people in the world, it is when they have had that last failure and they have had that greatest challenge, that's when they overcome it, becomes their success. But you can't see it as a failure. You got to see it as an opportunity. And it all happens, it all changes by the way that we phrase it. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. The way that you phrase it. Phrasing is choosing your words and how you use the situation to benefit or ultimately destroy your life. It's called phrasing. You can rephrase any sentence. You can rephrase any thought in a way that will benefit your life. And you think about the past failures of your life, how they have been an open door for growth. So instead of saying failing at something, I had an opportunity to grow in that period of my life. Can we look and see how our failures in life have become the most wonderful lessons? You choose your story. And what is the story? It is the content of what's written. What you tell yourself. Like we talked about last week, too often we set people up for failure. We set people up for failure and we continue to jab them in our minds because of the story that we tell ourselves about them. Everybody does it. And you know what? Before you know it, you don't like that person because you've told yourself something about them. Or you have this idea or perception of who they are. As we continue on, what does communication look like? Communication is not assuming. Communication is asking, requesting. Too often we have this idea and we assume that this is why this person did this. Instead of asking and getting the real truth or the real details. So communication is open communication without fear. Without fear. You get to choose your story. You get the power to choose how you see any situation. You get the power. That's your control. That's your power. And we talked about many times, Joe Caruso wrote that book, The Power of Losing Control. You have no control over others, and you have no control over your circumstances. All you have control over is the story that you tell yourself about any situation. And anything in your past, you can rewrite the story and tell yourself, this is how that has benefited me. But the sense is, if you're not looking for the good, you will find the trouble and meditate on that. And it will become your misery. It will become your hopelessness. It will become your repeated behavior. Wow. So, you choose your story. That's your power. You have power. You are the author of your story. Write it however you want to. Be thankful. And that's tough sometimes. Be thankful for the difficulties in your life. And I believe seeing God in that, and every morning thanking Him for the trouble, thanking Him for the trial, will give you a new perspective of what's going on in your life. Because every challenge you've ever had has turned into a blessing. And it has blessed you now. It has changed you. In order to grow, you must first be willing to change. Because growth and change are interchangeable. Why do you think they call it growing pains? Because sometimes it hurts. So that's the very beginning. That's the very beginning. Here we go. So, a glad heart makes a good face. So what is in your heart affects your visage, your face, your expression. Okay? If you are feeding the good, I tell you, it will show up outwardly. If you are feeding the evil, it will show up outwardly. If you see someone who's going through abuse, especially in marital abuse, it affects their face. It affects their visage. They look drained, miserable. You know why? Because everything that we put into this body, whether it is a physical, food, water, whatever, affects us outwardly. That's why they say, well, your skin regenerates every X amount of days, right? So if you are feeding it bad, what's going to happen to your skin? It's going to show outwardly. That's why it's the last place that it affects. But if you are feeding it the good, it's going to show up outwardly, and eventually you're going to glow if you take care of yourself. Physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional health. So what does he say here? A glad heart makes a good face, but by sorrow of heart, the spirit is stricken. So sorrow is atset bet. It is pain, hurt, injury, sorrow, wound. That is the wounded mind. That is the sorrowful heart. That is painful thinking. What does it do? By the sorrow of the heart, the spirit is stricken. The spirit is ruach. Your spirit, your animation, your vigor, your courage, your patience, your disposition. If you are wounded in your mind, it affects your courage. It makes you feel this big. Someone belittles you, you feel this big every day. Someone doesn't respect you, you feel this big every day. Your sorrowful heart affects your patience. Your painful thinking affects your disposition. And you end up nacha, stricken, afflicted, broken, and wounded. Like I said, you're your biggest cheerleader. Even in tough situations, you can conquer your mind. But how do you do it? Through what you feed it. You know that anything that anyone thinks about you never affects you until you begin to believe it for yourself. Someone's idea and opinion of you does not have to be your own idea and opinion of yourself. That's what affects you. It's when their ideas become your ideas. That's why I was talking about last week. Your authenticity is so important. That means be genuine to self. If you think you're a good person, if you think you're a kind person, if you think that you do good deeds, if you think that you're compassionate, powerful, if you think you're a hard worker, you have good work ethic, don't let anybody break that. Because you know why? Everybody's got an opinion, and everyone wants to tell you how your life should play out. But that's their opinion. You know why? It's their opinion based on their experience. But your experience does not have to be their experience. You can have your own experience. That's why I love the thought of Genesis 1, and he shall leave his parents and cling to his wife. You're building your own family. And we talked about that message about breaking generational curses. You don't have to continue to apply what you've learned if it's not benefiting you in your life for your family. And we've all been subject to that, every single one of us. There are things that your parents have taught you that you no longer hold on to. Bottom line. So, do you know anyone who always plays the victim? Anyone who always plays the victim. Well, this person did that to me, and this is the worst life I've ever had, and oh my goodness. Anyone that always plays the victim. Well, this person did that to me. Do you know anyone who, no matter what happens in their life, they always have a positive outlook? It's your choice. It's your choice. You can choose to seek all the things that go wrong, or you can choose to seek the positivity of your life and choose a direction that's ultimately going to benefit you. But if you're not giving yourself the right food, if you're not feeding your soul, if you're not feeding your spirit, you're going to be broken every time. Sorrow of the heart, the spirit is stricken. The heart of understanding one seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on folly. So we wanted to get into verse 14 because are you seeking? Are you seeking? Too often, we search for answers that validate our story. All religion does that. Every single religion. Think about when we were in Christianity, Independent Missionary Baptist. We only wanted to hear doctrine that coincided with what we already believed. Calvinism, the elect, whatever it is. And then, even when we heard that, even as the New Testament says, tickling ears. We wanted to hear it, right? Tell me more of what I already know. Tell me more of what I already believe. And then there's a hallelujah, praise God. That's the truth, right? But you're not that person anymore. You're completely far away from that person. You have evolved, you have grown, you have changed. Too often, we search for answers that validate our current story. All religion does that. So, challenge what you know. Challenge what you know. On the same page, we search for answers that validate our story. Same thing with partners. We let people mistreat us because we mistreat ourselves. We allow people in our lives that validate our stories and have poor self-esteem. If you have no self-respect, if you have no self-love, what's going to happen? You'll let anybody walk all over you. Because it's validating what you already believe about yourself. But if you do have self-respect, and you do have self-love, that's why at the bottom here I say love yourself. If you do have those things and you're strong in those things, you will let no one disrespect you. Because you care about yourself. Who you allow in your life validates your story. The things that you search for validate your story. So what we need to do is be able to challenge ourselves and listen to others. Listen what others have to say. The heart of understanding one seeks knowledge. I want to know. I want answers. But the mouth of fools feed on folly. They're not challenged. I was about to fix my glasses and I don't even have them on. Okay, anyway, so feeds on folly. So the mouth of fools feeds on folly. You feed, and what you feed is stronger. So be careful what you're putting in. Folly is foolishness. Okay? Folly is do whatever you want to and lack discipline. Discipline in your life actually gives you freedom. That actually does give you freedom. It gives you freedom and more time in your life if you are disciplined. If you can structure yourself and structure your emotions and structure the way you feel, it actually gives you more space to do the things that you want. Discipline. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but gladness of heart is a continual feast. So the afflicted, they are troublesome. But the gladness of the heart, the gladness of the mind, that is tob, that is goodness, gladness, good. Pleasantness, the pleasantness of the mind is a continual feast. So what happens at a feast? What are people doing at a get-together? They're talking. They're fellowshipping. They have fun. You're enjoying yourself. How you speak comes from here. The way you feel comes from what's inside. You don't have to spend much time with someone to hear what comes out of their mouth reflects what's inside of them. Anger, sadness. You don't have to be around anyone too long for it to be a reflection of what comes out of their mouth. Someone, and even as we continue on and we get further into chapter 15, it's a continual river of life. The one who has the goodness of heart wants to bless others. Be challenged. Psalms 43. All of Psalms 43. So the way you think affects the way you feel. So if we are putting new information in about determining the way we really feel about something based on our thoughts, it can change. Everything can change for you. We have two worlds. You have your primary world and your secondary world. And we'll get into that too. So Psalms 43, let me get there. I was in Psalms 53. And let me take a drink. Psalms 43. Rule me rightly, O Elohim, and plead my cause against a nation without kindness. O deliver me from a man of deceit and unrighteousness, for you are the Elohim of my strength. Why have you rejected me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? Send forth your light and your truth. Lead them, let them lead me. Let them bring me to your set-apart mountain and to your Mishkanoth. Send your light of instruction. You are faithful. He says, send your light and your truth. That truth is a method. It is faithfulness. Truth sends your stability. Encourage me. Comfort me. How many times have you been in disarray and then a spirit comes over you that just gives you contentment? And you just feel peace. Even in your struggles. Even in your lack of understanding. Even in your darkness. He said, send me the light, I'm in darkness. Send me your truth and let it guide me. I want to know God. I want to know God. And I don't think, as I continue to study and as I continue to look, it's something that we can really define. Many people in many different areas of life try to define it in a different way. I don't think it's something that you can put a label on. But I think that it's something that people have tried to label. Send forth your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Do you see how he's seeking? You don't stop. You don't stop. You don't give up. You don't stop seeking. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your set-apart mountain and to your Mishkanah, that I might come to the altar of Elohim to El, the joy of my delight, and praise you with the lyre. O Elohim, my Elohim, why are you depressed, O my being? And why are you restless within me? Wait for Elohim. So what is he telling himself now? Why are you discouraged at your current position? Look what God has done for you. He will continue. Why are you depressed? Wait for Elohim, for I shall yet thank him, the deliverance of my face. That is my expression. And my Elohim. We are all searching for answers. I do like this quote. Someone who thinks they know everything will never learn anything. Be humble. Be humble. Where you are today is not where you are going to be in 5 years. You are not going to have the same understanding. That's why I talk about mercy and peace upon yourself, grace upon yourself, because you are learning. But we are so hard on ourselves because we are not where we want to be. But I tell you, it takes time. It takes time. Therefore, you must be patient with yourself. You know where I learned that from? I was training somebody on a lift one day, And they were getting aggravated because they weren't catching on. And you know why? Because we have high expectations. Too often we tell ourselves, and we've all done that, I usually catch on to things pretty quick. Right? You ever said that about yourself? I usually catch on to things pretty quick. But we have high expectations for ourselves and high standards for ourselves. And when we don't get something automatically, we get angry. So as I was training that person, you could see him getting frustrated with the handles. I can't get this. I can't get this. And then I said, you've got to be patient with yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's a process. Life is a process. Life is a journey. As we continue on, I'm on my own journey. And even as our sensei in MMA says, he goes, if you're ever in a fight, you have to practice like you're going to fight somebody. You have to give it your all, because the way you fight is the way you practice. And he said, if you ever get into a sticky situation, and this is how you practice, that's how you're going to fight. So he said, you can't take me everywhere you go and pull me out of your pocket. You don't go with me everywhere that I am. I don't go with you everywhere that you are. But I believe with everything that is in me that God does. And you always have an open door to have a conversation with God. And if it's nothing more than you just getting it out in the air, and it's nothing more than you just expressing yourself, here I am, I'm telling you, things get answered. I'm telling you, just by your expression of your emotion, it gets heard. Let it come out. Don't think that you know everything. I used to be that person. You can learn something from anyone. You can learn something from anyone. I know a lot of things about a lot of things. But there are some things that I don't know. And I think why I do that is because I want connection with people. So I learned a lot about a lot of things in order to connect with others. And that way that whenever I'm having a conversation with someone, I can validate what they know because I know that also. And we can have a conversation about it. But if someone is telling me something that I don't understand, that's an opportunity for me to learn. And also, as we have said many times before, you have been given one mouth and two ears. So you listen twice as much as you speak. If you speak, you say something that you already know. If you listen, you might learn something new. So you can't think that you know it all, because we're all still learning. So, never get complacent. Never get comfortable. One of the hardest things for me, and I wasn't even with y'all whenever we switched over, talking about Jesus and switching over, one of the hardest things for me was letting everything that you've learned through your life go. And you know what? That's still going to be the hardest thing for you as you continue on your spiritual journey. That's going to be the hardest thing for you, is letting go of everything you've ever learned. You know why? Because it's so ingrained in you. It was taught to you as a child. And that's all you ever knew. Don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable. Same thing with relationships. You know why one of the top tiers of why relationships fail? You get comfortable. I'm here. They're here. They're not going anywhere. Relationships. Act like you are still trying to win them over. Always. Act like you're still trying to impress them. Do things for them. Love them. Touch them like the first day that you met them. Kiss them with desire and passion. Treat every day like a brand new opportunity. You have power. Relationships. Act like you're still trying to win them over. You have to continue to show up. You have to continue to try. You have to put in the effort. I do like this thought when it comes to work. So everybody's had a new job, right? Treat every day like your first day. Work. The first day of work. You're still trying to prove you're worthy. You're still trying to prove that you belong here. That will give you good work ethic. If you treat every day of work like you're still trying to prove yourself. You're still trying to prove that you belong. And you will put every ounce of effort that you have into that. And that's Ecclesiastes. Everything that you do, do it with all your might. Proverbs 28. Proverbs 28 and 9, just one verse. It's just a verse about communication. 28 and 9. He who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah, so we know Torah is way, instruction, direction, even as prayer is an abomination. So what is prayer? Prayer is your communication with God, right? We expect God to listen to us, yes? He said, why do you expect me to listen to you if you're not going to listen to me? He who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah. Torah is just instruction, the instruction of God, the direction of God. In order to be understood, that's what everybody wants, right? I want someone to understand me. In order to be understood, we first must seek to understand. You got to be able to listen in order for others to listen to you. But too often we cut people off. Guilty. Very guilty. You know why? Because we want to prove our point. We want people to understand. But in order to be understood, we must first seek to understand. Communication is key in any relationship. I'm on my own journey with my own struggles. The communication that we're talking about in this verse is the communication with God. Do you talk to him? Do you talk with God? How often do you do it? Are you searching for answers? Tell me you've never had a personal relationship. Tell me you've never had a personal experience with God. You may not have been able to define what that meant to you at that time. Christians call it being saved. Tell me you have not had a personal experience with God. And all of us in here at one point in time said, I want the truth no matter what. Are you still willing to take that stand? Are you still willing to take that stand? In order to be understood, we must first seek to understand. Communication is any relationship, is a key in any relationship. That's the same communication that you have with God. We're still trying to figure it out. I'm on my journey. I'm on my own journey with my own struggles. Communication is not, this is what communication is not, assuming this person did this because of this. We assume. And what happens? It makes a yep. If you don't know that quote, I'll tell you later. But anyway, communication is not assuming. Okay? Communication is, or assuming that, okay, communication is not assuming someone knows. We are not mind readers. Communication is not assuming someone knows. We are not mind readers. We are not mind readers, but expressing yourself without fear. That's communication. That's an open relationship. Communication is so key. Because if you're afraid to express yourself, if you're afraid to express your feelings with someone because of how they will react or how they will respond, it becomes hurtful, deadly. It begins to break and not bond. You should be open in your relationship. There should be a vulnerability that comes with, I feel this way, let me express it to you. Now, you also have to consider when you are expressing yourself, how the other person will respond. But that is maturity. That's where we all have to become mature when we have difficult conversations. Because that is a part of every relationship. You're going to have disappointments. You're going to have struggles. I think Bob Marley said, Everyone in your life is going to disappoint you, but you just have to figure out who's worth it. No one is perfect. No relationship is perfect. You cannot figure that a relationship will ever be perfect. No marriage is perfect, but it is two people that are committed to each other. They are self-aware. They understand what they are bringing to the table, and they understand themselves enough to reflect. Saying sorry in a relationship is a big win for both parties. Apologizing in a relationship when you did wrong and being able to say, I could have done that better, and then trying to make it better is a big part of a relationship. That's communication. I care about how you feel, care about how I feel. Let's build this together. Communication is not assuming someone knows. We are not mind readers, but instead it is expressing yourself without fear. That's one key to communication. Communication is active listening with the intent to understand. Why do you think Shema is so important? It's active listening with the intent to understand. So there's two parts in every conversation, right? The person telling and the person listening. The person listening is the one who is trying to understand. The person telling is the one not assuming that the person already knows. And you might have to repeat yourself for someone to get it. What did we hear before? It takes 6 times for someone to really understand something. Telling someone 6 times for them to really understand it. But if you are a sorrowful heart, what happens? You lose patience, like we talked about before. Expression, communication, open dialogue. And you know what is a good place to start when it comes to communication, especially in your relationship? Just daily things. I came home, this happened at work. When I was driving, I saw this. You know what bids are? You know what a bid is? So a bid is when you're in a relationship and you are trying to get the person's attention. You are bidding for them to join you in a conversation. So Gallup, it was either Gallup or Gottman. They did a test on couples, and the successful couples attended to bids. There are 3 things you can do. You can be passive. Oh yeah, that's cool. Let me give you an example. Okay, so there are 3 things that you can do: be passive, ignore, or you can respond. So there's the 3 things you can do when someone gives you a bid. Look at that outside. Or last week when I was like, do y'all see God coming through the light? Okay, that is me bidding for your attention. Okay, now you can respond. Wow, that's awesome. You can reject it. That's not God. Or you can be passive. Yeah, whatever. That's what that means. The people that are successful in their relationship take the bids and engage. Because they're wanting your attention. Because why? People want to be heard. People want to be loved. People want to be validated. Communication is so key. Proverbs 15, and we'll close out. No, I got Proverbs 15, and then we'll go into Proverbs 3. I know we know Proverbs 3, but there's a part that we want to get in Proverbs 3, 1 through 4. So Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15, we'll go through 1 through 10 because it's about communication, but we're really going to hit on verse 1. So Proverbs 15 and verse 1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up displeasure. Okay? Have you ever heard fight fire with fire? What does that do? Create more fire. It doesn't help. And then before you know it, it's out of control and you're trying to extinguish it. So you don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. And the only way that you can do that is when someone is angry with you, be tender with them. Be soft. So a soft answer turns away wrath. But if you continue to fight, harsh words stir up displeasure. So we're talking about being defensive as we talk about this verse. If you are being critical of someone, they want to be defensive. They want to defend themselves. So there are 4 horsemen, okay, that destroy the relationship when it comes to communication. The Gottman, they did this research and they had 4 horsemen. The 4 horsemen and their antidotes. The first one, and this is how it starts, and the last one is stonewalling. So you have criticism, which turns into contempt, which turns into defensiveness, which turns into stonewalling. Okay? The first one is criticism. You are verbally attacking someone's personality or character. You're critical of them. If you have a discussion, you never destroy someone's personality or character, but rather address the behavior. Behavior is something that you can change. It's something that can grow. It's something you can adjust. But someone's personality and someone's character is hard to change. So address the behavior. You do not want to belittle anyone. You do not want to break them down. So the number one of the four horsemen is criticism, and the antidote is a gentle startup. So talk about your feelings using I statements. This is how I feel about that. I statements and express positive needs. Instead of being overly critical of somebody, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and why didn't you do that? And man, you're stupid. How does that make somebody feel? Nobody wants to respond to that. Nobody does. And that's how you break someone's spirit. It's continually telling them that they're not good enough. Or continually telling them and making them feel like they're not good enough. Talk about how you feel. Using I statements and express positive need. I feel this way, and let's work on this. Contempt. So if you are overly critical and you continue to point out people's faults and what's wrong with them without a resolve, it turns into contempt. That is attacking the sense of self with an intent to insult or abuse. So what you're doing is you're showing superiority. I'm better than you. I'm not going to listen to you. There's a way to defeat this. Build culture of appreciation. Remind yourself of your partner's positive qualities and find gratitude for positive action. So what are you doing? Instead of being critical of them and noticing all the fault and continually being critical of them and thinking of yourself superior to your partner, instead find things that you like about them. Simple. Tell them you appreciate them. Show them the gratitude. If someone somebody be doing the dishes. If someone does the dishes, it's simple enough to say thank you. If someone cleans the house or someone puts gas in your car, whatever it is, the simple thing is thank you. I noticed what you did. And it doesn't matter how many times they do it. You can tell them every time thank you. You can tell them with gratitude and appreciation, thank you. And that will change the way you think about them. Because we can go in a spiral of contempt. I'm angry with you. You did this, you did that. And what do? Like we talked about last week, we start taking ticks. You did this and you did that. And now we've got an arsenal whenever they bring something up against us. Contempt. Gratitude. I tell you this continually, even before we read about the four horsemen. I tell you this continually. The answer to complaint is thankfulness. Gratitude. Contentment. So once you become overly critical, you both become content with each other. I'm right on this and I'm right on this, and we can't find any resolve. Eventually, people become defensive. So defensiveness, victimizing yourself to ward off a perceived attack and reverse the blame. Well, I did this because you did that. That's defensiveness. Or I did it because of this and that and this. What's the answer? Take responsibility. Accept your partner's perspective and find an offer. Accept your partner's perspective and offer an apology for any wrongdoing. I told you that's very important. If you can apologize. If you can be humble enough to say, hey, I'm sorry. And it is not, let me give you another key. It is not, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That is not saying an apology. A responsible apology is, I did this wrong, and I'm sorry. It's not, because if you say it that way, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry for how they responded to what you did. So an honest apology is, I'm sorry for what I did. I did this. I recognized it. I'm sorry. That's responsibility. And that's how you conquer defensiveness. Because too often we're defending ourselves. Y'all, I can be a worm sometimes. And what that means is I can talk myself out of a paper bag with my words. Take responsibility. We're quick to defend ourselves. Take ownership. Take responsibility. That's the key to defensiveness. And once you've had overly critical conversations, you become contempt, your superiority, you both think that you're right, you can't come to any resolve, you begin to defend yourself in everything that you do. Eventually, it comes to stonewalling. Stonewalling is withdrawing to avoid conflict. You don't even want to have an uncomfortable conversation anymore. You don't feel heard in that conversation. You're stonewalling the person. You're stonewalling to avoid conflict and convey disapproval. So I'm disapproving you. You just check out. That's what that is. It's checking out. You convey disapproval. You distance. You separate. That's stonewall. It doesn't just have to be checking out. It could be leaving the conversation. It could be creating distance. It could be separation. How do we answer this? If you are, or you need, and I really like this thought, you don't leave the house, just leave the room. Don't leave the relationship. That's not an option. You just leave the room. If you need time for yourself, just leave the room. Okay? And when you do that, take a break. So physiological self-soothing, what that means is take a break and spend some time doing something soothing and distracting. So you can get your thoughts together, you can get your emotions together, how you feel together collectively, and have an adult conversation. This chapter is about communication. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up displeasure. Can't fight fire with fire, okay? And in order to have a productive conversation, it takes two people who are self-aware. And the conversation might be spread over a period of time, okay? It might take a little while to come to a resolve, but that shows that you're going to show up. It shows you're going to continue to try. It shows that you're going to continue to put in an effort to make this right for both people. No one wins in an argument. No one. No one is right and no one takes blame. You both have to feel validated when you leave. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge good, appropriate, but the mouth of fools pours out foolishness. Have you ever been so angry you just spit off at the mouth, and then by the time that you're finished, you regret everything you said? Don't be foolish, okay? The tongue of the wise makes knowledge good. Verse 3, the eyes of Hashem, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, are in every place, watching the evil and the good. He sees it all. A healing tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it crushes the spirit. Why are we trying to destroy each other? Alleviate the suffering. Heal someone with your words. A fool despises his father's discipline. Remember, this is about communication. But he who heeds reproof is clever. The household of the righteous is a great treasure. So the righteous doing right, there is an abundance of treasure, goodly goods. But in the income of the wicked is trouble. The lips of the wise scatter knowledge, but the heart of fools is not so. They scatter foolishness. The slaughtering of the wicked is an abomination to Hashem. Why is that? What was the slaughtering for? It was rectitude. It was for you to become right before God, right? But what does the wicked do? They only do the sacrifice and then they continue to do evil, right? So no wonder it's detestable, because it has no bearing. But the prayer of the straight is his delight. If you want to do right, even though you have done wrong, but you're sincere in your prayer and you want to follow God and you want to know him, that's his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination to Hashem, but he who loves him But he loves him who pursues righteousness. Discipline is grievous to him who forsakes the way. He who hates reproof dies. Discipline is a part of life. You can't always be right. You can't. So any communication after you are leaving that discussion, it has to make both parties feel validated. Proverbs 3:1, and we'll close out. Not only is this for your relationships, this is for your friendship, this is for your spouse, this is for everybody. Anyone that you're talking with. We have been hard-hearted. We have been stubborn. We thought we had God and had it all. But now we're realizing probably didn't. Didn't have everything we thought we did. So, Proverbs 3:1, and we'll close out. We know Proverbs 3, we talk about it often. My son, do not forget my direction, my Torah, and let your heart watch over my command. So this is direction, instruction, the way. For length of days and long life and peace they add to you. Let not kindness and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, thus finding favor and good insight in the eyes of Elohim and man. This is talking about your communication with God and your communication with man. If you are always truthful and never merciful, you're not going to have a lot of people that want to be around you. If you are always merciful and you never share any truth because you're scared, what's going to happen? People are always going to trample over you. But if you hold on to instruction and you're willing to teach, it gives you good insight to where you can have better conversations with your fellow man and also with God. Be truthful, but also be merciful. Consider yourself. I tell you that often about empathy. Empathy is what? What would I do in that situation? You probably have done the same thing that you're aggravated with someone over. And we're really only aggravated with self. So instead of correcting self, we attack others. And too often, we've said this before, the way people treat you, if someone is angry with you for no reason, it's a reflection of who they are, not a reflection of who you are. So don't get offended. You've got to be authentic to who you want to be. You've got to be authentic to self. But first, you need to identify who you want to be and set yourself a goal. You know why we lose hope in life? You know why we feel the depression? It's because we have lack of sense of purpose. If you have purpose in life, if you have meaning in your life, what does that make you do? Strive. It gives you a goal. So find out what your meaning is. Find out your purpose. If your purpose is your kids, wonderful. Wonderful. If your purpose is the greater good of humanity, wonderful. That's a good purpose. If your purpose is personal growth, good. You just have to find out what it is. If you've lost purpose and you've lost meaning, that's where the depression comes from. Remember why you got into it in the first place. Like we said about the job. When you go to the job, act like every day you're still trying to prove yourself. Don't become complacent. Don't become comfortable. When you become comfortable, that's when you stop respecting people. You start disrespecting others, talking about being in a relationship. You're comfortable. I can say anything I want to now. You're not going to leave. People mistreat people because they get comfortable. Act like every day you're still trying to woo them. You're still trying to show that you are worthy. It will change your aspect. Like I said, find purpose and meaning in your life, and that will bring you vigor. God is good. God is good. Build your communication with God and build your communication with others. These are some tips. God bless you. I pray for you. Shabbat shalom. Everybody have a blessed day.